Okay, so final poem we're going to look at is Mask of Anarchy, which is absolutely fantastic political poem. And an incredibly powerful poem. So you may well kind of look at this one and go, oh my goodness, this is long. And be tempted to skip it. I'm not suggesting you would, but just gonna leave that there. Don't. Like, it is very accessible, I think, as a poem. And it has some really powerful moments. This was Percy Shelley's real attempt to write something that people would be able to understand. This is him being direct and obvious. It shows kind of slightly how out of touch he is, but it has this incredible refrain. Rise like lions after slumber, in unvanquishable number. Shake your chains to earth like dew, which in sleep had fallen from you. For ye are many, they are few. And it is a really kind of powerful, direct statement, looking out to the people that he is talking to, saying, do something now, because this cannot go on. So if you scooch up, we'll have a look at your, get your slides up. Out to the West Wind, I didn't have any slides for that. I just have a picture there saying that's what it is. Cool. Moving on. Mask of Anarchy, you will see here. So, to break down the name Mask, sometimes you'll see it spelled M-A-S-K and sometimes you'll see it M-A-S-Q-U-E. Same poem. Different kind of edits of the poem that led to the different spellings. The title of the poem refers both to a mask, which is a dramatic pageant, often kind of done to kind of celebrate power. It would be a kind of a parade of sorts. Kind of, everybody's walking down, everybody's gathering around to watch them and sort of cheering to some extent. And at the same time, the masquerade of sort of deception. If you think of like masquerade balls where people hide their faces, which he kind of considers he really is going to play on the organized deception that is carried out by the government. Now, this poem is very specifically responding to one event. It is responding to a massacre that happened in 1819 in St. Peter's Fields in Manchester, which is often referred to as the Peterloo Massacre because it's in Peter's Fields, Peterloo, like Waterloo. It was, so what was happening here, if you have a look actually at the next slide, I've put a picture up from Mike Leigh's film Peterloo, which if you're kind of interested in learning a little bit more about it, it's actually a very, very good film, very informative film, just detailing the events of the massacre. Yes, so it was a peaceful protest. I've got a couple details on the previous slide there. Really one of Britain's first major peaceful protests. That was calling for parliamentary reform, particularly in light of the Corn Laws and the structures that had been put in place, which were really, really crippling a poor, the poor that were already under a vast amount of pressure. It was absolutely huge. About sort of 60 to 80,000 people were gathered there, and it was, it wasn't violent. There were quite a few speakers. People were simply there in their masses. All these ideas of democracy, of liberty that are coming from France, of sort of Rousseau's idea of social contract, that the government govern, but they are responsible to the people. That this goes to both ways. It's not just a power commanding everyone else. It results in people saying, okay, well, we are going to go and voice our objection. So yes, there were speakers, and there were, as I say, absolutely tens of thousands of people standing there protesting. Now, in one of the most unadvisable responses to a political protest that one could imagine, the local yeomanry basically just tried to just subdue the protest, saying, okay, well, we're just going to ride into the crowd with drawn swords. I think they had some kind of like sabers, and they just rushed into the crowd They killed. There's lots of kind of speculation and debates and different numbers on exactly how many people were killed and how many people were injured. Several hundred is the number for wounded. It seems it was about 15 people who were actually killed on the day. And it was an absolutely kind of awful, unforgivable response to a peaceful protest. And it was a tragedy that provoked outrage across the country. That this was a real wake up moment for so many people, saying, okay, this is a parliament who isn't listening to us. This is a government authority that simply isn't prepared to negotiate, that are saying, oh yeah, yes, we value what the people say, but they're not. Here is the classic moment of people trying to talk and not being listened to, being violently subdued. So if peaceful protest doesn't work, what does work is obviously the next question. If you take the lesson of the French Revolution, going, okay, it was people rebelled with violence, and that obviously got way out of hand. Well, this is the alternative, but again, it's being met with violence. Now, Percy Shelley. Percy Shelley was not in Manchester. He was not even in England. This is the later years of his life, just 3 years before he died, when he was living in Italy. And it took a little while for the news to reach him. News is slow back then. And as soon as it did, he was absolutely overwhelmed, and he called the poem his torrent of indignation, that he was absolutely furious, and he very directly refers to the Mask of Anarchy he refers to the Manchester massacres both in the poem and in his notes around it. The poem, as I mentioned, is intended to be accessible. It is intended to be direct and readable. Unfortunately, it was not published at the time. He sent it to his friend, the publisher, and it is just such a direct attack on various people in power that his friend couldn't publish it. His friend just said, really regretfully, very much, his friend is Leigh Hunt, a publisher, and yes, that would be a great thing to publish, but it's not worth it. Leigh Hunt is someone who had already spent some time in prison for publishing seditious material, actually really satirical material, if we're honest, material that just called the Prince Regent fat, but also was doing an awful lot of agitating, but I think it was calling the Prince Regent fat that really tipped it. So what is this poem? It is a prophetic dream. It begins with his voice, "As I lay asleep in Italy, I heard a voice from across the sea." So this is really kind of the what I was saying about this narrative voice that frames so much of Percy Shelley's works. It kind of seems to be him as a poet saying, okay, I was in Italy, I was asleep, I was dreaming, and we come back to that idea of when we dream and how we are to be woken from our dreams, from our contentment or our just being in the way that things are every day. It is an apocalyptic vision of Regency Britain. We have very recognizable figures of authority, parading in and really showing their weaknesses. They are named. It is not the people of authority dressed up, but these kind of characterized, personified. What's the word? The personifications. I'm just going to go with personification. These personifications of anarchy, of murder, of hypocrisy, and they are dressed as British politicians. And they are absolutely absurd. One of them is riding a crocodile. Of course, why not? And so showing their flaws, showing their illegitimacy as well. They're vile, they're monstrous, and they are absolutely destroying the British people who have gathered around them. Now, anarchy here is very much being used in a very negative sense. I kind of mentioned that Percy Shelley was in some ways his philosophy had elements of what we would now call communism. In some ways, it has elements of what we would now call anarchism. I mean, not entirely, but he was interested in what we would now think of as proto-anarchism. Anarchism hadn't really been put forward as any kind of philosophical treaty. The ideas were there, but that word wasn't there. The word anarchy was very much a negative, mad misrule word. So when he's talking about anarchy, he is talking about this absolutely awful rule. Somebody is ruling, but they are ruling terribly, cruelly, irresponsibly. So anarchy is kind of the king of all of this masquerade that is happening, this mask of people kind of processing through, with the people of Britain come to watch. His followers, we have lawyers and priests, and they're all just processing, and they are trampling people, they are trampling children, they are trampling, just whoever is there, and these people have come somehow, for some reason, they've kind of come to celebrate these awful people, and the murderers are coming out, and the warmongers are coming out, and everybody's going, okay, great, they're here. The only person who challenges this procession of evil is a maniac maid. She's described as a maniac maid, and her name is Hope. Think back to the painted veil. We have the twin notions of fear and hope. Hope is here, and like the protesters at Peterloo, she is trampled. She is killed. And this is where Percy Shelley vastly struggled in his life with really urging people towards political rebellion, towards protest, towards objection, but he knew that was going to cost lives, that we aren't going to get where we need to without some violence, and he was always looking for a way to mitigate that, but he kept coming back to an acknowledgement of, no, we have to burn some stuff. We come back to the Mask of the Ode to the West Wind, where he talks about the flames in the final section. And very much like in the Ode to the West Wind, she dies, she is trampled, and then she rises again. It's a very kind of almost Christian notion of sacrifice. And he was very interested in Christ, despite being an atheist and not really believing in a Christian God. He liked Christ as a person, as a historical figure, and thought his teachings were really very good. And so it is her, and the final part of the poem is spoken in her voice, and she is the one who issues this rallying cry, the rise like lions after slumber, which if you have a look down, so there's the picture from the film Peterloo, and then there's a contemporary illustration, which is, hang on, I'm just bringing it up a little bit bigger here on my screen to read it out for you. I'm trying to. I'll tell you what, I'm gonna look at that more closely later and just write up the text and put it on the slides for you, because it's very small here. But you literally have the horses, an illustration from a newspaper at the time of the horses and the soldiers just trampling down all the children. There is, of course, a woman in a bonnet fainting. Anyway, come down to the next slide. Mask of Anarchy, political legacy, and we have that so famous line, that rise like lions after slumber in unvanquishable number. So Shelley he's being Hope here, he is being the West Wind. This is him delivering his message to the world, saying we have to act, we are asleep, and we cannot stay asleep. If we choose to shake off the chains, we can. All we have to do is wake up and shake, and they will fall away from us. Ye are many, they are few. This is about the oppressed majority. This is about the people who are suffering. So many people are unhappy right now. The people who are ruling are only people, and there are only a few of them. It is an incredibly bold statement to say, ye are many, they are few, because that is an implication of violence, because when does it come down to numbers? It comes down to numbers when it comes down to physicality. So it is an invocation. It is a call saying, no, come, we have to act now. It is tragic that it was never read, that Percy Shelley never got the recognition in his lifetime. I have highlighted here the political legacy, and I've given a couple of very major moments of when this specific poem has been quoted. Mahatma Gandhi read it during the kind of the battles in India for liberation from the British, to kind of stir on his countrymen. He sort of read this as a rallying cry. It was read at Tiananmen Square in China, and most recently it was read by Jeremy Corbyn at Glastonbury a couple of years back. And even if you see actually the New Labour slogan, for the many, not the few, is taken from Mask Anarchy, slightly twisted there, but very much playing on that famous line. So the wonderful thing is that, so much of what Percy Shelley was saying about, okay, one day people will understand me. Yes, people do. And it didn't happen, and he did have to trust to the west wind and that his ideas would be dead for a while. And then at last they would spring up and renew. When you're kind of reading through this poem, there are quite a few moments where it talks about the very specific people, politicians of the time. Kind of like Byron, like with Don Juan, you have lots of references to people, and you can get as much or as little into those as you like. Eldon, I think, is an interesting one. I have a slide on Eldon. Not Eldon, sorry. So yes, Eldon is an interesting one, but Eldon specifically was the one who denied Shelley custody of his children. So he had a very personal grudge against Eldon. Castlereagh was one of the, really vilified and was sort of one of the people who was putting in structures that would really harm the poor. Actually, interesting figure to look at. Ultimately, he committed suicide, and so there's perhaps some suggestion that he was aware of how really awful he was being, because he's sort of become one of the great villains of history. Probably particularly because he was being attacked by people like Byron and Shelley, and so everybody remembers him as being that really awful, awful person. Read through the poem, sort of take your time with this, enjoy the absolutely savage descriptions. I'm just kind of going to skim through this here and pick out a couple of the great, it's so violent, it's so visceral, it's so right there. Here we go. So Fraud comes through, and he has, like Eldon, an ermined gown. So Fraud is wearing Eldon's ermined gown. His big tears for heat wept well turned to millstones as they fell. So millstone, great big heavy stones. So he's crying, and the tears. So this is Fraud. So this is someone who appears not as they really are. He's pretending to be sad, pretending to be empathetic, but his tears turn to giant millstones, and as they fall, the little children who round his feet played to and fro, thinking every tear a gem, had their brains knocked out by them. Jesus, he's just going for it. Children are coming to play at the feet of this man. This is the man who has control of the fate of Percy Shelley's children, who had forbidden him access to them. Here, the children come to him. The children come to him for safety. Well, for fascination. They're fascinated by the gems. And these tears that are millstones, they're just bashing out every one of their brains, literally crashing through their heads. Really extraordinary. Castlereagh's got these great big bloodhounds following him, and he's tossing them human hearts to eat. He's really going for it. And there's so much in here that is vicious. And look at the, it's a very accessible poem. The images strike firm and clear. You're not going to miss the, children having their brains bashed out by millstones. Good or bad? It's right there. The rhyme is repetitive. We have this AABB just running through it. We have a lovely bouncy rhythm that keeps us carrying on. It's very easy to remember this poem. You'll find phrases that get stuck in your head. Because it's meant to be a poem that people can say to each other, can recite, will stir people on. So yeah, read it through, enjoy it. On Monday, I'm going to be online, and I'll be there to kind of talk through any questions that you have and anything that you're sort of struggling with a little bit. So do have a read through all the works, note any questions that you have, and I will see you guys on Monday. If you can't make it for whatever reason, or you have any questions later on, drop me an email. You know where I am. Peace.